Hello, this is Mr. Kays, and we are on 14.1b. 14.1b. We saw earlier the need for reform in the medieval church in Europe, and today we're going to be looking at challenges to the church in Western Europe. We're going to look at the Crusades. Now, the Crusades were caused by the fact that Muslims had taken over the Holy Land. And an important dude that we have to look at is Pope Urban II. He was the one that called for a holy war against the Muslims in the Holy Land. Jerusalem had fallen into the hands of the Muslims, and they had not allowed Christian pilgrims to go down and do their religious journey. So a holy war was called, a crusade, Christians would call it, to free these holy lands from the Muslim control and push out the Muslims. Now, many sincere knights responded to this plea of the Pope. How many? Well, we're looking at about 50 to 60,000 from Western Europe who go to war, but not a lot of them returned. The Pope in the church had made it known that anybody who died on the crusade was assured a place in heaven. So that made people want to strap on their sword, get on their horse, and fight for this holy cause. Now, the causes for the crusading spirit included the sincerity of the Pope pleading in his plea to go to war. Another cause of the crusading spirit is kings wanted to get rid of nobles that were troublesome to them, so they sent them on the crusade and kind of hoped that they didn't return. Merchants loved the crusade because it was a chance for them to earn money in selling food and personal goods and places to sleep, and also for merchants with boats to send armies or take armies down to the Holy Land. So it was for personal gain. And as I said before, anybody who died on the Crusades supposedly was assured a place in heaven. Okay, the first and second Crusades. The first one was somewhat successful. It allowed the Christians to earn a strip of land about 400 miles on the long on the Mediterranean Sea. It captured a couple cities. 4 kingdoms were set up, each ruled by a noble. The second Crusade was a total disaster, and it forced the Crusaders to kind of limp home, and they had to reconquer. They had to keep coming back and reconquer and reconquer. The city of Jerusalem had fallen to this Muslim leader called Saladin, and we'll talk about him in a greater way. The third and fourth Crusades, we have 3 of Europe's most powerful kings at the time going on crusade together. Philip II, who was French, Frederick I, that we've known before as Barbarossa, he was the German emperor, and then King Richard I of England. He was also known as the Lion-Hearted. Well, the 3 started out, but they didn't all end up at Jerusalem. Philip couldn't get along with Richard I, French versus English, and he just packed up and went back home. Frederick I fell overboard and drowned on the journey, so that lunkhead was gone. So the only one that really reached Jerusalem was Richard the Lion-Hearted. And we know that he's a very, very able military guy, and he is going to wreak havoc in the hearts of the Muslims, and is a very worthy adversary for Saladin. We see with that third crusade and the fourth crusade, we see I would call the third crusade a tie. The fourth crusade resulted in the destruction of the unity of the Christian church because knights didn't even make it down to Jerusalem. They stopped at Constantinople and they looted the city. It's like calling out the police help, and then the police come and they rip you off. So we have a split between the Eastern Orthodox Church and the Roman Catholic Church because of this looting of Constantinople. You can understand that with each successive crusade, the spirit of crusading and doing the right thing kind of dwindles. It seems like the knights were only out for the money they could get, the glory they could bring themselves and their their people and just getting paid, I would say. Crusades to Africa were led by Louis IX of France. He later was made a saint in the Church of Rome, also known as St. Louis. We also have a children's crusade that took place in 1212. They marched down to Jerusalem with no weapons, just the idea that God would give them the kingdom, and many of them died on the way, and the others were sold into slavery. We have a Spanish crusade that didn't go to Jerusalem, it went to southern Spain. The Muslims that were there, known as Moors, M-O-O-R-S, controlled the country until this Spanish crusade called the Reconquista. You can figure out the Reconquista means to reconquer, to drive the Moors out of Spain, and they were successful in getting rid of the Moors. Now, to unify Spain under Christianity and to consolidate their power, the kings of Spain used this church court called the Inquisition to suppress anybody who spoke against Roman Catholicism. They would call this heresy, and what they would do is torture people until they got a confession. It doesn't sound very Christian, does it? What are the effects of the Crusades? Why were they fought? Well, we see because the Christian lands had fallen into the hands of the Muslims. Well, what are the effects of the Crusades? Well, we see, number one, the Byzantine Empire is weakened. Number two, the Pope's power declines. Why would that be? It's because we see the Pope asking for the crusade, and wouldn't you expect that God would, make them victorious? Well, they weren't. The power of feudal nobles weakens, and the power of kings becomes stronger. That's important. You're going to see not many kings in one area, but one king for a developing nation. Religious intolerance grows. People did not accept other sects or denominations that well. But we did see some good things. Italian cities begin to expand in trade and grow rich. Muslims increasingly distrust Christians, obviously, but trade does grow between Europe and the Middle East. And we begin to see European technology improve as the Crusaders learn from Muslims and other people. So it really got Europeans off of the land to a new place and saw what was possible as far as technology and trade, etc., etc. You're going to see Europe enter a period where trade is going to grow in a great way. Well, this is Mr. K's, and this is the end of Chapter 14.1b. See you down the way. Bye-bye.